Hello everybody and welcome back to KXP, where we play Kerbal Space Program in third person. If you're all caught up on the Janus project, then you know in the last episode of POV, they nearly risked 2 Kerbals' lives in a disastrous attempt to pursue aggressively the Minmus landing program to take hold of that and conquer both the Mun and Minmus in our space race. So when they failed, they acknowledged that we would have the upper hand by knowing that they made such an attempt, and said that they doubted that we were in a position to attempt it ourselves. And you know what? They may be right. We were going to get our own space station up into launch first. We wanted to make the science that they did and take advantage of the same technology that they have, but mission accepted. Challenge will be attempted today to land a Kerbal on the surface of Minmus, plant a flag, and bring them safely home. And we're launching at the very crack of dawn. It will be dark for part of our liftoff, but the coloring was too beautiful to pass up. Our side boosters, we had a couple fleas attached around us to give a little extra thrust to weight ratio off the launch. Yeah, see, those are the colors that I'm talking about. Gorgeous. Anyways, our launch today is also going to be a huge science gain for us, because the farther out you get from Kerbin, and when you're landed on different biomes, you get a significant boost in your science. So this is going to be very lucrative for us. We also have contract to orbit Minmus, as well as the actual Minmus program from our strategy. And so we're going to be looking pretty good if we can pull this off. Our launch vehicle isn't anything too fancy or different than any other launch we've been doing these last few episodes. You got the Tundra tank and the Octopus rocket, but this time we've got a little parallel of 3, 2 side boosters attached to one center with a fuel line in between them to refill the center tank. This is severely overpowered, and Delta V has more than enough to give us plenty of opportunity, plenty of margin of error. This ends up being one of my most efficient ascent profiles we've done in the series. I don't know why, I just let it hold prograde. It had the right thrust to weight ratio to kind of gently tilt it over here. As you see, our apoapsis is slowly rising out of the atmosphere, and we're only into space now. But we just burn enough and our periapsis will pull through, and pretty soon we'll have a nice tight orbit around Kerbin. At 121 kilometers, 127 kilometers, I kill my throttle and decide to circularize from there. 9 second burn, 164 meters per second out of our 961. Take us no time at all. Our inclination change for Minmus will be a little bit more than that, but still shouldn't be too bad. We got 100,000 funds for getting a heavy rocket up into space, bringing us to 2.2 million. Looking pretty good. So we're just going to time warp ahead to the inclination change and the switch over from one stage to the other, and push our way out to Minmus. We've done that several times before in both the series, in both episodes, and on this channel before. So we're just going to skip forward a little to the actual approach of Minmus. We do a mid-course correction here to get our inclination on the right side. We have our thrust turned down very low because it's a 1.1 meters per second burn. We're going to do it for 5 seconds, but I get this beautiful effect out of the engine bell. Look at that. Gorgeous green. That's the Marlin engine. And I don't know if it's stock with the Marlin engine or with whichever mod that's from, or if it's from the waterfall mod that we have, which changes around how engine plumes look. Either way, it was beautiful to see the different change at a lower thrust. But anyways, we're just bringing our periapsis up a little bit so we don't crash into any mountains on Minmus, but we want to keep it below the 30 kilometers because I believe that is the barrier for low space. And then we'll just bring ourselves in to circularize. The Corvus doesn't really have a very good IVA, in my opinion. I wasn't too thrilled with it, so I don't like using it in the KXP POV. But in third person, it's actually pretty great. I like its sleek design, the two-seater aspect. We can get 2 Kerbals down on the surface. The fact it's got kind of like a built-in parachute and RCS nose cone. I was pretty happy with it. I've barely used it. I've had it in almost all my playthroughs, but I've like never used it simply because I didn't like the IVA, and so I just kind of wrote it off for a while. But it's been doing good in this series. But there we go. We can circularize. We still have 614 meters per second in our tanks, and it's not going to take nearly all of that to land. Minmus has a very low gravity, so it's fairly easy. It's a lot easier to land on Minmus than the Mun. So I'm going to play around with the maneuver here. It was hard to see where the line was because the color of Minmus was so bright, but eventually I get there. I first play around with landing on this lower plateau here in the bottom right, but I eventually decide against it, choosing a northern one instead. Minmus looks a little extra shiny than some of you may remember because this is utilizing the Parallax Continues mod. I bit the bullet and got it and have been enjoying the updated textures. The most recent update made it in a higher detail at higher orbits, so I saw that and I'm like, well, you know, might as well give it a shot. I've been enjoying it, looking forward to seeing more of it. But Minmus was pretty interesting. It had some textures of the Mun that we had seen in previous episodes, but Minmus is where I think the difference is truly known, and I'm kind of excited to show you once we get a little closer. But for now, we're gonna get ourselves focused on our landing event. We've got it plotted into Flight Computer, and once we come around to the light side of Minmus, we'll get ready to touch down. And as we come to our peak, we burn. The camera shift lets us know that we are now coming in on an impact trajectory. Our angle was a little strange to see where we were coming down at, but that's just how it goes when you add normal or anti-normal into your burn. Things get a little funky. But anyways, we've got a nice little plateau to go for. We're going to push that out a little bit more eventually to get a nice solid flat landing if we can. I forgot to mention our pilot today is a new pilot by the name of Bartson Kerman. First flight ever. Tomini has a history of going to other celestial bodies, so this is just a walk in the park for him. We're going to use MechJeb's landing info to time our suicide burn and make sure that we don't break up. However, we still have 455 meters per second of delta V in our tank, our lower tank, So, I mean, it would kind of be a waste not to use it, right? So we're going to actually leave it attached, even though not only will our landing gear not function because it'll be too high, but our science, some of our science won't collect because it won't be able to touch the surface. But nonetheless, we're going to try. We're going to land on our bell if we can, do some quick science, and then jettison, maybe head over to a different biome, jettison the lower tank, and then land with the rest of our fuel. Look at those Kerbals. They're just having a ball. Alright, 5 seconds till the countdown. We've got quite a heavy thrust to weight ratio, so it's really going to take no time at all to stop. And it is a bit of a slope. It was not as flat as it looked like from a higher altitude, but nonetheless, I think we can handle it. I do forget to put SAS to retrograde until it's far too late, so I'm going to have to do some maneuvering, and at that point I realized, you know what, it's not worth it. We're not going to be able to stand upright for any amount of time, and if we look over at our delta V in the left, we have almost 3,000 meters per second, and that is the 4 tanks on the sides with a fuel line in the middle, so that gives us another 1,200, so I think we'll be alright to waste a little fuel. Right there, I played around with Planet Shine to see if I had cranked up the settings at all to make the planet brighter, but nope, that's just how bright Minmus is with parallax continues, because it has a much more reflective surface. But now we are coming down. We've reached our apoapsis and returning back to the surface. We can easily point ourselves retrograde and just feather in our landing. We've got 5 Terrier engines at our disposal, so it's not going to take very much throttle. And just like that, we have 2 Kerbals, or at least the craft of 2 Kerbals, on the surface of Minmus. Take that, POV. Said that we weren't ready. So now this is also not just a mission for the milestones, but a mission to gather as much science as possible, because now that we have attempted our Minmus program, as long as we can successfully plant a flag and bring these Kerbals home, we can start turning our eyes on other celestial bodies, other planets, other moons, and other adventures. But for now, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go ahead and bring in this magnetometer. I don't like leaving them out because they can put your craft off balance or get in the way. And we're going to get Tomini out to do some science. He gets the honor of being the first Kerbal to set foot, but he's not going to be planting the flag. That is going to be for a later time. Bartson has different ideas for where he wants the first flag to be landed. So for now, let's get our scientists out, get RCS on. We're going to need to restore our Science Junior because we only brought the one, and we want to collect at least 2 biomes worth of science. So do a quick little EVA in space low above Minmus, and then he gets ready to do the rest of it. He looks at his hands, realizing that the minty green surface is not actually mint ice cream, but rather space dust, and was quite upset with that. Back on board, we found out that we had accidentally packed the science experiment with Bartson, so we had to go get that before we could hop out and do one final experiment in this biome. This one, of course, is my favorite. It's the most fun, and that is the EVA experiment. And on planets like this, it's this little spinning of a nut or a cap of sort. Test momentum. 100 science. Can't complain. And with Minmus's low gravity, it gives us plenty of time to focus on our next objective. And we want to bring a green sandstone home with us. We don't have a mission for it. And in fact, it would actually behoove us to go back to the Space Center right now before we even went anywhere. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. And I'm going to fiddle around with that for a little bit. But it's a little hard to focus on finding the solution of how to get rid of it when you're flying, because if you crash, you can die. But anyways, it would behoove us to go back to the space station and collect a mission, because we would most likely have a mission to bring one of those sandstones back with us. However, we're thinking short-sighted right now. We're just in the adventure. It's so much fun being on Minmus that Tomini's just focused on getting the sandstone. And also, we're not really considering this mission completed yet. We have one more biome that we want to land in, and some ideas of what to do once we get there. So now we spotted our green sandstone among all the rest of the scatter, and we're gonna go ahead and pick that up and then head back to the craft and then hop back in the pilot seat yet again. 150 science, but we have to bring it home. We can't just tell them about it. Thankfully, we didn't travel too far away from our craft. We can still spot it with the naked eye, and we can safely RCS pack our way over there. Tomini is so happy. If only MODLIST could see him now. I'm sure she'd have something fun to say. Bartson's a good pilot, and means well, but no one had the sass and wit like MODLIST. He's gonna bring this rock home, give a piece to her family, and remember the good times. But for now, he boards with a smile, shows what he got to his pilot, who simply smiles back and says, "Good job." Now it is on Bartson to get them safely to another biome. Not only did he have the challenge of landing on a moon once, but now he's got to do it yet again. And as we zoom out, we can see that we're fairly close to our goal. We just need to head a little bit north, a little bit east, and then we can land on the flat plains of Minmus. Like I said, it doesn't have a lot of gravity here, so a little goes a long way with our trajectory. As we turn on the trajectories mod, we see here that with a little push, we're basically over the hill that we needed to be. In fact, we're going fairly high, so we've got plenty of time to work around with it. So we're going to play around with our trajectory here and try to put ourselves in the ideal position without having to use maneuver mods. And once we get ourselves anti-normal, we burn a little bit because I want to get into this little horseshoe area. After my many times of being here at Minmus, I do know that this area right here is fairly rich in resources. And if we ever decide to plant a base here, maybe do some extra planetary launch pads, we'll want that. We'll want a refueling zone here somehow. And so it's the perfect place to plant our first flag at an ideal future site of such an endeavor. May not be now, may not be ever, but if we ever do decide, then we're already in good position. And with the trajectories mod, it makes it easy to plot exactly where we're gonna land. And this whole time, I ended up forgetting that we're not in map mode. We're actually just zoomed out. There's just so much detail here that it just looked like we were in map mode, but nonetheless, we got our Kerbal's portrait in the bottom right, telling us that they are happy. Okay, so we kind of feather it in here. We're gonna push it out a little bit later, but for now, let's just hop back, zoom back in to the craft, get ourselves pointed retrograde, and ready for descent. We've got a minute left to go before impact and slightly less before we need to burn. So we're just going to tilt ourselves so we have a much better positioning for our landing gear in case we have to do a sudden shift. At this point, I decided to turn on my trajectories yet again and see exactly where I'm coming down, and I realized I'm kind of far away from the next biome. I could actually just pop this out a little bit, push it towards the edge of the flats right there, and land a lot closer. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I love the trajectories mod. If you don't play with it, there are other mods that show you where you will land, but honestly, the trajectory mods I think is the most accurate, and it's just the most intuitive for me. I kicked on the throttle. I don't know why. I didn't need to, and I adjusted away from my perfect landing zone, but nonetheless, I'll take it, and we won't burn until we need to. 38 seconds. We get word from Mission Command, wishing us luck. Bartson landed on a slope earlier, so he should have no problem landing on a flat. But in space, there's never any guarantees. Ten seconds to burn. One more second, and at the 0.7 mark, we burn, cancel out our velocity, and let ourselves tip up. Like I mentioned before, we've got the 5 Terror engines, so a lot of throttle, a lot of thrust there. We utilized some of our RCS to flip ourselves around because it would be very embarrassing if we couldn't land on a flat surface. So that's why we make sure that we do. So there we go, second landing of the mission. Now we're on the flats, very glassy, a lot of reflection on it. It was actually a little hard to see it at times. It was blinding, but it was pretty fun. Excited to see what the POV crowd gets to see in a first-person perspective. But anyways, it's time to do our science again. Unfortunately, this is the same type of science that it was before. We don't get anything new from it, but fun to do nonetheless. He's doing a EVA report of himself flipping around. Probably included somewhere that he was a little bit motion sick from that, but nonetheless regains control of his RCS pack and comes back home to store his reports. Do all of the science that we can from Mintz's Greater Flats, and it is quite a good chunk of science for each experiment. This will be very lucrative once we can get it back home. He gives one final salute before getting ready to do his most important science experiment, to play a round of golf. And with that, it's 125 science, or excuse me, 150 science for that, 125 for the surface sample that was taken. So let's go ahead and get him back aboard, and then it's time for Bartson to stretch his legs, because we're gonna have him have the honors of planting the first flag. There we go, the Minmus flag of the minimalist Kerbal systems for everybody flag mod has been planted. The Minmus base site has been established, and the plaque reads "First to Minmus." Milestone has been taken today, and as long as well, the milestone has been taken regardless of whether or not we get our Kerbals back home. The first flag has been planted on the surface of Minmus, and therefore the KXP crowd has now regained their losses and are once again in the running of the space race. Each side has conquered one, and so the question will be who's the first to go interplanetary, who's the first to go into deep space, and what will they see there, what will they do there. But that will be for later. For now, we need to get these Kerbals home so they can show everybody what they've got. So it really doesn't matter which direction we take off from on Minmus. Everywhere we go is going to shoot us straight up, and it's not going to take very much to get back into the orbit of Kerbin. However, there are ways of doing this very, very wrong that send you out of orbit Kerbin entirely. You can send you on a solar expedition. And now we do have 2,462 meters per second delta V, so we could go on a solar excursion. But we are playing with TAC life support, and we only have so many snacks for them, and we don't want to let them starve out there in space. So we're going to take this nice and easy. We're going to raise our apoapsis and then get ourselves into a stable orbit. As we see here, just that little bit of thrust that we gave it has already gotten us 12 kilometers above the surface. So we just plot in our circularization from there and go ahead and plot that into Flight Computer. There we have it. We now have level 3 scientist and level 2 pilot, and that's because we checked the settings when we first started to allow Kerbals to level up immediately. I feel like that's a fairly reasonable one, because you know the Kerbal learns a lot on their journey. Why wouldn't they be able to apply it after they learn it? As we see here, because we completed the orbit Minmus and the land on Minmus, we got $3 million to our name. It's a good comfortable zone to start working on bigger and grander projects. And that little bit of burn brings us to a circular orbit. We are fairly inclined, but it's not going to matter too much. We're not needing to minimize our usage of our fuel. So I first plot in our maneuver at our periapsis, which seems pretty good. It actually brings us in, but as we bring it out, we kind of lose control of the trajectory there. I add some radial out to it, and it kind of fixes it again, but I just don't like how it looks, so I decided to clear the maneuver. And you know what, I'll try it at the apoapsis, see if that gives me better results. But when I pull it out entirely, we straight escape, no matter what we do. And if I bring it out there, we can't even get back into Kerbin. So that's what I was talking about. So depending on where you launch from, it's not always a great idea to just launch straight up. So I cut the difference between the apoapsis and the periapsis, but that's no better. And so we're just going to stick with our initial maneuver somewhere near the periapsis. It doesn't need to be exactly. And we're going to just bring ourselves to that nice wide circular orbit because we have, it's only going to take us 122 meters per second to get there, and we have 2,298, so not worried in the slightest. Oh, excuse me, we have 2,298 in the stage that we have now. Once we jettison those 4 engines on the side, we'll have a full tank of another 1,200. So we could actually go to the moon. The problem that we ran into here, why we didn't end up doing another biome, because I definitely would have been considering doing another biome hop. We had a scientist on board. We could have reset everything. That wasn't the problem. The problem is we ran out of storage space. We no longer had enough room to store any more science experiments. We couldn't take another sandstone. We couldn't take, well, we can't have 2 sandstones anyways, but we couldn't take any more surface samples, any more material studies, none of that. And so unfortunately, if we were to do this again, we would have to bring more science storage units to gather all the data that we have. That or a mobile processing lab, which would be probably better. Seriously, the POV crowd had it right. Get a mobile processing lab in orbit of Minmus first, before anything else, and then utilize that to just take all the science gains. I was unfortunate to see their failure happen in the last episode. It would have been really interesting to see them get Kerbals on the surface of Minmus and then rendezvousing up with the space station to deliver the science. That would have been a fun mission, but alas, we get to do something similar first, but no space station for us. But anyways, at our periapsis, we go ahead and just flagrantly burn fuel with no regard to efficiency because we don't need to. So with our maneuver in place, we're going to drop down our periapsis just a little bit lower, just get right above the Kármán line, and we're going to utilize that, and then we're going to plot in another maneuver at our periapsis once we get there to circularize before coming home, because there's no need to come in extra fiery if we don't need to. So we get ready to say goodbye to Minmus as we time warp our way out. It was nice knowing you. Wasn't nice tasting you. A letdown, to be sure. Just to take a quick second, I'm going to pose my theory that Minmus is not a ball of minty green ice cream, but in fact a wasabi pea. Think about that one. And with that, we bring our periapsis down to about 100 kilometers. Nice and safe. We have no danger of accidentally falling into the atmosphere. So let's go ahead and plot a circularization burn at our periapsis. Initially, I was going to bring it down by hand because I was going to just plot in our general descent, but I decided to circularize instead. It does take 882 meters per second delta V. which is quite a lot, but again, we have over twice that, so I mean, over twice that in this stage, so not afraid. This lander is very overpowered, and it's good to see because we should take a look at the Delta V charts and see where else this thing could possibly go. We may be able to land on another moon, probably not another planet, but definitely another moon with this. May need some more life support, but it could be possible. The goals of going interplanetary have never been closer for the KXP crowd, and so already starting brainstorming where to go next. Thinking Duna would be cool. Always, Duna is always the sensible option to go next, but, we've never been to any of the moons of Eve. We've never even been to Eve, so that could be fun as well. Jewel looks amazing. We can start sending probes into Jewel and sending Kerbals to the other moons of it, but I don't know. I'm not sure where to go next with this. If you have any thoughts and any wishes of which place you want to see first in the KXP viewpoint, let me know in the comments down below, and we'll weigh out our options. Maybe I'll make a survey if enough people are interested in weighing in on that. But for now, let's go ahead and plot in our return to Kerbal. We actually have the ability of coming in above the KXP, but we do end up messing up that maneuver right here as we extend out, and I don't realize that we're not actually in the atmosphere now. That white line represents where we enter the atmosphere, so we're going to overshoot the KSC considerably, but nonetheless, it's nice to know that we're close enough. So yeah, we have over 1,800 Delta V remaining that we're just going to jettison into the surface. And just, waste all that. But unfortunately, we don't have a heat shield to protect us. And initially I thought, hey, it might be kind of cool to just do a powered landing on this with 5 Terror engines. Surely I have enough thrust to keep myself up. But I did not want to risk chain reaction explosions from the different fuel tanks exploding, carrying all the way up into the capsule. So we are going to jettison it. We activated our descent action group, which should have collected all of the science from the capsule. However, we are in cinematic mode, so we didn't get to see the notification of that. So now the heating effect starts to work up, and it is pretty cool to see on our craft. However, the real star of the show today is all the extra pieces that we jettisoned, because every single one of them have the Firefly effect added to them, and they all come trailing in with us. It's quite a sight to see. And like I said, we are over the ocean. Definitely overshot our target considerably. But over the ocean is still pretty good. Nice, softer touchdowns. Easy to find. Easy to get to. Nothing like a mission well done. Landing in the daytime, being able to see where you're going. Being able to look around you in third person, see everything of where you're going in your craft. It's a good life. It's a good life for these Kerbals and their explorations. I do want to take a quick second and let y'all know that in the coming weeks I am going to take a quick pause on both the KXP and the POV series to work on how we are going to get interplanetary. That is quite the achievement for us right now, especially if we go to any place that we've never been to. We need to practice there, so we are going to be working on that. But in the meantime, we are still going to be doing Kerbal on Mondays and Fridays. We have RP1 still coming every Wednesday. No change to that. But on Mondays and Fridays, I'm going to have a couple other things for you. I've got a couple videos of... I want to show you a couple mods that I really enjoy that I don't really see people talking about. I'm thinking I might do another episode of the Bargain Bin Rocket Parts, because that was actually really fun playing around with that mod. I've got a couple ideas in the works they're not playthrough videos, but I think they're going to be pretty fun Kerbal episodes nonetheless. So just want to let you know for that, to expect that. And then when we come back in a couple weeks, we will be, like I mentioned, setting our sights on higher goals in the POV crowd. They have one last mission to accomplish, and then they too will be able to handle such a feat as well. We're also going to think about establishing colonies on Minmus, because we're going to be sending stuff interplanetary, but we can also do other things in the meantime. So we may work on sending something interplanetary and then focus on going back to Minmus and establishing a surface colony there. Definitely a space station. But anyways, as we get our report back, our science report says that we earned a whopping total of 37.5 science solely from the recovery of the vessel, and that is because that action group that I had set to take all the science from the collector into the capsule didn't work. I don't know if it wasn't set correctly or if it just wasn't it was a faulty action group or whatnot, but nonetheless, all that science gone. That pretty green sandstone gone. Surface samples gone. So unfortunately, we will be sending another landing party to Minmus, and that maybe that will be part of the surface station or part of the space station episode. But anyways, that will be in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward for more KXP. If you did think about subscribing, drop me a like, let me know your thoughts, and I will see y'all in the next one. Take care.